And now for your WCGR Sports Talk Live News update. In baseball, Chicago Cubs Nation was pleasantly surprised Thursday when free agent outfielder Dexter Fowler showed up to Cubs camp to announce that he had re-signed with the team on a one-year deal, with an $8 million base, a $5 million buyout, and a $9 million option for 2017. It was reported last Tuesday that he had reached a 3-year, $35 million deal with the Baltimore Orioles. There was never an official agreement with the two parties when the news was reported. Fowler wanted a one-year opt-out and the Orioles didn't agree, causing the deal to fall apart. Fowler will be the starting center fielder for the Cubs, which means Jason Hayward will likely be playing in right field, his natural position. The Cubs also traded outfielder Chris Coghlan to the Oakland Athletics for pitcher Aaron Brooks. That deal was announced minutes before the Fowler news broke. On Friday, the Chicago Cubs announced that they had agreed to a minor league deal with outfielder Shane Victorino. Victorino is a two-time World Series champ, as he won in 2008 with the Phillies and 2013 with the Boston Red Sox. Along with Theo Epstein, Blackhawks GM Stan Bowman has had himself a busy week, as he has made some big moves before this coming trade deadline. Bowman brought back center Andrew Ladd from the Winnipeg Jets in a deal that sent Marco Dano and a first-round draft pick to Winnipeg. Ladd was a key player in the 2010 Cup-winning team, and he had to be dumped to the then Atlanta Thrashers to clear up cap space after that season. Just yesterday, the Blackhawks traded forward Philip Deneau and a 2018 draft pick to the Montreal Canadiens for forwards Thomas Fleischmann and Dale Weiss. Weiss has 14 goals this season with 108 hits, bringing some physical presence to the Blackhawks. Their next game is against the team with the most points in the NHL, the Washington Capitals. That game is at the UC tomorrow morning at 11:30 on NBC. In football, the Chicago Bears have announced that they will use the franchise tag on wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey if a long-term deal is not reached by this Tuesday. The star wide receiver has battled numerous injury problems the past 2 seasons, despite being one of the NFL's most talented targets. He only played 9 games in 2015, recording 54 catches for 807 yards. The tag is expected to be $14.5 million if it is indeed applied. This has been your WCGR Sports Talk Live News Update. WCGR 80.5 FM, The Underground. You're listening to Sports Talk Live with Alex Pat. And we are back with Eric Nemchock here.
Hello.
And we are going to discuss the topic of our team alone, the Chicago Bulls. It's been a year that has been full of frustration.
Yeah.
Full of just disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
And a year that we constantly ask ourselves, what is our front office doing or lack thereof? What's going on?
Man, I wish I could answer that question. I wish I could.
Yes. Now, here is something that really irked me. Before the trade deadline, about a week or so, we saw rumor after rumor on Twitter, on Facebook, in the papers, on the news. Oh, the Bulls are going to try to go for Cousins. They're going to go for that. They're going to make it happen. And I didn't believe it for 1 second. I'm like, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened? Nothing. Oh, our big trade was trading Kirk Heinrich for a draft pick. Whoop-de-doo.
There's one thing you can rely on the Bulls to do at the trade deadline, and that is try and save money.
Yeah, and
they did. Good job, Bulls.
And will they land a big superstar?
No.
They never do. We saw Melo last year, and all this talk, oh, what if we bring in Kevin Durant? I'm like, do you believe for 1 second that the Chicago Bulls are going to bring in Kevin Durant?
No,
I don't believe that for a second.
No.
The closest thing to signing a superstar was getting Pau Gasol.
Yep.
I think that's the closest we'll get.
Yep. It's the sad truth. This is just not a destination for superstars. I mean,
No.
It just doesn't happen.
Which, think about it. It's not a destination for superstars. We're one of the biggest markets in sports in the NBA. We're the Chicago Bulls. What does that tell you about our management?
Man, I don't know if it's management or... Well, I can tell you something. I can tell you what it isn't. Or what it is, actually. And that's the training staff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you look at all of the failures through the years that the Bulls have had with injuries.
Yep.
Not just injuries. Every team sustains injuries. I'm talking about making Luol Deng play on a broken leg after misdiagnosing him.
Yep.
Then subsequently making Luol Deng go through a spinal tap procedure, which there are complications of. He nearly died.
Oh, that was
I'm
awful.
not even being overdramatic on that. He lost 15
you're right.
pounds. And then he still wanted to play in the playoffs. I'm like, no, dude. Like,
Dude, you shouldn't be on a court for months.
And then, with all this stuff going on with Derrick Rose and his injuries, I don't claim to be an insider on any of this. I try and... It's a pretty polarizing subject these days. Let's just put it that way.
Yes, it is.
So I'm not going to be taking any sides. I'm not going to act like I know what's going on because I don't. But when other teams see this sort of thing, when they see the sort of PR that the Bulls have surrounding their injuries and their training staff, they're not going to want to come here.
No.
Because they saw what happened with Luol Deng and how he was treated. Mm-hmm. They're seeing what's going on with Derrick Rose and how the team is throwing Derrick Rose under the bus, how he's kind of being alienated in his own city.
Sure.
And they're thinking,
And look at Joakim Noah, too, with the plantar fasciitis. That's another thing, too.
has there been a year when Joakim Noah has not had plantar fasciitis?
I don't think so. I think you have to go back to his rookie year.
And so you see players are looking at that and say, do I want to play there? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, it's Chicago. Yeah, Chicago's cool. Yeah, Michael Jordan played there once, but
When they think about themselves,
yeah, like, okay, sure they have a chance to win, but is that chance high enough where you risk going through all of this?
I think the championship window, frankly, I think that closed last year.
Oh, I think it closed before that.
You think?
I think their best chance was the year Derrick Rose tore his ACL.
I keep telling people that was their year.
Yeah.
Their peak year, their year to do it, that was the year. Mm-hmm. Because the year before, they had the best record. They bowed out to the Heat in 5 games. Okay, let's regroup. We make a few signings, make a few moves. Here we are. We're once again the number 1 overall seed. We're going to the playoffs. Let's do it. Rose tears his ACL, and then ever since then, it's gone downhill.
They lose to our old friend, the 76ers.
Wasn't that their last playoff series?
Which might have been the
win?
last actual significant happening in the 76er history.
I think it is. I don't think they made the playoffs since. I really don't think they have. So, and one thing I will say that really disappointed me going into this year, you saw it in Game 6 last year, how they just seemed to give up.
Yeah.
They didn't put any effort into it.
The elephant in the room was that Tom Thibodeau's job, his fate was basically sealed before the season was even over.
Yeah.
And you can say what you want about professionalism. You can say what you want about not letting it get to him. That gets to him.
Yes.
When they know their head coach is a dead man walking, how are they supposed to give 100% in the playoffs?
It's just the whole thing is
it's rotten.
It's rotten, yeah. And we saw the whole turning point. If the Bulls win that, what was it, Game 4 when they could have easily won, but they missed how many shots, and then LeBron hit the buzzer beater.
Yeah,
that changed it. That sunk us.
If they win that, then they have I believe, 3-1 series advantage.
Yep, they had a 3-1 because it was 2-1 after Rose made the buzzer beater.
Yes, they would have had a 3-1 series advantage, and the difference between that and 2-2 is enormous.
Yep.
That's a huge swing.
Honestly, when they lost Game 4, I pretty much said, well, it's over.
Yeah.
It's over. The Cavs will take Game 5, and then Game 6 we got to win, and, LeBron in elimination games at the United Center knows how to get it done. You don't say you lose a series going tied 2-2, but in that scenario, you did.
Well, in the situation in which the other team has home court advantage, they had 2 home games, we had 1.
Yeah.
That's an automatic disadvantage right there.
Yeah, exactly. You can't say the same thing in baseball or hockey, really, but in this scenario, and where they were, that's how it was.
Right.
And, okay, so we talked about Tom Thibodeau. Now we go on to the current coaching. Fred Hoiberg. Mm-hmm. What do you got to say about him?
I don't think he's been great, but here's the thing. You got to look at the roster he's been given. Mm-hmm. When Fred Hoiberg was hired, we kept hearing all these things about, he's going to play up-tempo, he's going to play smaller lineups, we're going to be playing faster, we're going to be sharing the ball more, we're going to be looking to push, blah, 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 all the good stuff, all the stuff people wanted to hear,
Yeah.
Then we go out and we start a 35-year-old Pau Gasol at center.
Yeah.
You can't play that style of basketball with the roster the Bulls have.
No, you
and
can't.
once again, we have Kirk Heinrich as your backup point guard.
Well, not anymore.
Well, not anymore, but I'm saying like in the start of the season.
Right.
And then once again, not shockingly, Derrick Rose is injured.
Yeah.
Then Kirk Heinrich is pressed into action. And everyone says, oh, well, Hoiberg, blah, 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 blah. Okay, yes. It took him a while to figure out the rotations.
Yes.
I'll say that.
Yes.
But the front office failed at complementing his style of play with a competent roster.
And now they wanna hide it by saying we're gonna do everything we can to bring back Pau Gasol. Do you really think he's gonna come back? No.
Do I think he's going to come back, or do I think he should come back? Because he should not come back.
Right.
Unless it is on an extremely, extremely cap-friendly deal and he's willing to come off the bench, because he's going to be old. He is old.
He can barely move as it is.
He's stuck in mud out there.
Yeah.
And like I said, he does not fit the Fred Hoiberg system.
Right.
You can't bring a coach in and tell him to coach a certain way with players who just can't play that way. It just doesn't make sense. So, I could go on about this for days.
I think honestly, overall, everyone's accountable for something.
It's just a mess.
Yeah, it is.
You can't vilify one person.
And it's like I don't see much of a bright future for this team.
Neither do I.
And I said this at the end of last season. The Bulls have some very dark days ahead. At the United Center, the court is going to see a lot of misery, while, all the greatness in the United Center is going to be on the Blackhawks side.
This is what happens. This is what happens. We talked about it before the break. We talked about having a plan going in and rebuilding. Mm-hmm. The Bulls went from a championship contender to a middling Eastern Conference worthy first round opponents, mm-hmm. to a team that has no plan moving forward.
No plan whatsoever.
Yes, they fired Thibodeau. Okay, the villain is gone, and I could tell you a few more things about that, but I won't do that. So Gar Forman and John Paxson, the front office, they fire their scapegoat in Tom Thibodeau.
Yep.
Then everything's supposed to be all hunky-dory because they got Fred Hoiberg and his fancy new system. Jimmy Butler coming off a breakout performance. Derrick Rose is healthy. Yay. We know better. We know better. We know better than to
we're not
believe that.
fooled anymore. It's unfortunate to say, but it's true.
And, hey, Pau Gasol coming back. Joakim Noah healthy. Yippee. But when you look at the direction that the league is taking in general, this roster, the core is no longer good enough to win a championship.
No, it's not.
That's just the way
past.
it is.
It's past
just the way
that.
it is. And then you look at, okay, well, what are the Bulls? You talked about the darkness of their future. Mm-hmm. What are the Bulls' assets?
Butler, maybe Portis.
Their first-round draft pick from last season is their best young player.
Yeah. McDermott is a good scorer but can't play defense.
Case in point. McDermott, all right, how many picks did they trade to get him? There's a guy in Utah right now, Rodney Hood. Mm-hmm. He is lighting it up. That guy can play some ball. McDermott, like you said, your brother talks about this on Twitter a lot. He says if Doug McDermott is not scoring, he's a negative. And he's right.
He's
because
right.
He doesn't pass. He can't defend. Mm-hmm. He's not going to be crashing the boards. So if he's not shooting and making three-pointers and all that, he's not providing much value.
Exactly.
And you trade all your draft picks, you trade all your assets. I talk about assets as far as, draft picks, young players, things that you can either develop or flip for, current big
It's like
big
the
items.
Baseball equivalent of prospects. It's like the hockey equivalent of prospects.
Yeah, I just prefer the term assets because it makes me sound smarter. Like you look at the Bulls' assets, they have none.
No.
They have none. And it's the classic case, I say this as a White Sox fan, it's the classic case of reloading, not rebuilding.
Jerry Reinsdorf. Kenny Williams will never use the rebuild word. Never.
That's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
These two teams are both owned by Jerry Reinsdorf.
And they're so dang loyal. And, I mean, this is coming from a Cubs fan, but it amazes me how some of these people still have jobs, but it's his loyalty to these people.
Yep.
The Bulls and the White Sox are the same thing. They have talented players. They can have enough to make, make you not terrible. But at the end of the day, it's like, your weaknesses are going to be exploited. And they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, It's amazing how a few years ago, like the Bulls were so just exciting, and you thought, they're going to bring back the championship to Chicago, and Rose is going to hold the trophy over his head. He's going to be next to Jonathan Taves with the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Nope.
It was not meant to be.
Nope. And I mean, I love Jimmy Butler. I love him to death, but I just feel like he's on a path of wasting away with this team.
Well, you bring up an interesting point in Jimmy Butler. Fred Hoiberg's system is based on playing up-tempo, which Butler can do. He excels at.
Yes.
But it's also based on passing the basketball.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler, he can make plays. He can create plays.
He has the talent to do it all.
Yeah, he's a very well-rounded player, especially offensively. But here's the thing. When Jimmy Butler has been out, I don't know if how much you've been watching, but the Bulls are passing a lot more often.
Yes.
Now, of course, when you have a star like Jimmy Butler, he can get to the free throw line at will. Mm-hmm. He can pull plays out of his rear end. You saw him put up how many points? 50-something against the 76ers?
Yeah. I saw him when I saw them play the Pacers over Christmas break. He had the game-winning bucket where he just drove in and somehow got it in.
The guy's a beast.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you play that sort of isolation basketball, it's not conducive to what Fred Hoiberg wants to do, and that's run the offense.
Yes.
Now, whether Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler can coexist in the backcourt, I'm not sure about that yet, because they're both players who, in order to be effective, they need the ball in their hands.
Right.
There's only one ball.
Yeah.
You got to figure it out, man. Obviously, time is running out in this season to figure out whether or not that's a problem. Obviously, you'd like them both to be healthy heading into the playoffs.
If we make it.
If we even make it.
If we even make it. That's the thing. Who knows if we'll even make it? I think, okay, you know what? I see them being no more than a 7th seed right now. They're going to be like they were under Vinny Del Negro, in that
41 and 41.
41. Both years. 41-41.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. But the thing is, I mean, the Vinny Del Negro, that was more of an exciting young team. You saw that Boston series.
Because you had the assets. I keep using that word. I apologize.
It's okay. That's what we're here to talk about.
You have the future. You have the youngsters. You have Derrick Rose, Rookie of the Year.
Joe was young.
Joakim Noah was young.
Luol Deng was finally getting into his,
Luol Deng was still young because remember he was drafted before they had the
right.
Well, no, he spent a year at Duke, I believe, but he came to the league very, very young. He was still a part of that young core.
And he was finally getting into his, finding his niche.
He was hitting his prime.
Uh-huh.
And that was something you felt like, okay, this team is okay now, but hey, we took the defending champs to 7 games in a really exciting series.
We're just going to keep going up.
This is going to be a pretty good team in a few years. And they were a good They were a good team in a few years.
They were.
And then in a few more years, where are they?
They had their window to win. It didn't happen.
And it closed very quickly.
Very quickly. And that's the thing that other teams, not only in basketball, but in this city alone, have done well. The biggest example, I give it again, the Blackhawks, they maintain it.
Yeah.
They are building what is already considered a dynasty. This window that the Bulls had was not very long.
No, it wasn't. And I'm not much of a hockey expert. I don't know much about hockey at all. But you talk about the Blackhawks. The NHL, that's another league in which you have to take the cap into account.
Yes.
And
that's a big story with the Blackhawks.
Yes, even more so than the Bulls, most likely.
Oh, big time. Big time.
You see people like, oh, Patrick Sharp leaves. Everyone's all sad. I understand that. But hey, guess what? They still have their star core.
And
they're still good.
Brought in more. They bring in more young players.
Exactly.
You just restock, and you don't reload like you say, the White Sox are going to sign Dimitri Young or something stupid like that. No, it's you get these young guys in, and they've got so much more young talent. They are maintaining. Theo Epstein's trying to do the same thing. The Bulls, they don't have that.
They don't. And unfortunately, where this comparison falls short is that in the NHL and MLB, you have a farm system.
Right. And the farm system in NBA is a joke.
I would argue that there really is no farm system.
It's hard to call it a farm system. You really can't. If you are a true NBA future star player,
you're going to be in there.
You're going to be right there.
As soon as you enter the league.
If you're in the D League, it's like, well, you've just signed your death sentence.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, seriously. Which, speaking of that, quick little news story on that. The Windy City Bulls, the new D League team for the Bulls, are now official. Ooh. Exciting, isn't
Hold your
it?
applause.
Yeah. Cool.
The Windy City Bulls that do not actually play in the Windy City.
I don't get that. I'm sure you and I will make it to a game. The tickets are probably dirt cheap.
They are. They're extremely cheap. I saw the prices online. When you look at the salaries, it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the season tickets for like the upper like areas like $17.
I'm in.
Why not?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, it is important to note that there is an actual farm system, but the overall idea of maintaining your core and maintaining the assets you have, as you like to say, is something that good NBA teams do. The Bulls do not.
I want you to look at the San Antonio Spurs. That team is incredible.
Every
that might
aspect.
be the best run franchise in professional sports.
Yeah, that would
because
very good argument.
I mean, obviously, Greg Popovich, he's a legend. He's an amazing head coach. But
best in the league.
Yeah, and when you look at the Spurs, the job first of all, they do an amazing job of scouting international talent.
Yes,
scouting international talent. And scouting talent around the league. Every year they bring in some player who, maybe has been a journeyman, maybe hasn't been as effective as the team who originally drafted him had hoped he would be.
Put it in that system, though.
Greg Popovich plugs him right in. He has a career year.
Yep.
And without, making many waves. But then you look at the stats and you say, when did he become good?
Yeah.
It's the Spurs. And then you look at Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili.
They do their job.
They're getting up there in age, but their minutes are managed so well.
They're still doing good things.
They're still contributing. Tim Duncan is how old now? And he's still... You could make an argument for him. People aren't going to like this, but you could make an argument for him as Defensive Player of the Year because he just means so much to that team on the defensive end of the floor. He can't jump over a paperclip, and he is one of the most effective defensive players in the league.
Yeah.
That's how good he is. And... Again, like Manu with the very unfortunate injury, which I will not describe because it's painful to even talk about.
I don't even want to think about it.
As a guy, I don't really want to talk about that. But before that, he was another player who's been very effective heading into his elder years.
Yes.
Same with Tony Parker. And then what happens? Big free agent splash. They sign LaMarcus Aldridge.
Mm-hmm.
He comes in. And what does he do? He buys into their system. He's not taking 20 shots a game like he did in Portland, but he doesn't need to because he realizes, hey, I'm on a team where everybody is held accountable. Everyone has their own role. Maybe I'll be, the guy down the road once Timmy finally retires and whatnot.
Right.
But Pop was able to get him to buy in to their system and to the vision of the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
The vision of the franchise is elite, professional, world-class basketball year in and year out.
And look what they do.
And they're in it every single season.
Year. Yep. It's
every
amazing.
Every year you say, well, this might be it for the Spurs. They're getting up there in age. And then
no, it's not.
And then you look at they're in the NBA Finals again.
Yeah, it's amazing.
How are they able to do it? Superior scouting, superior coaching, superior drafting.
And
they have it all.
The biggest thing that I love about them, they do not make prima donnas out of themselves.
Nope.
They do not make themselves... Look at us. Look how great we are. No, they do their job, and that's all they do. And even though people don't realize it, like you said, they are run better than most franchises in sports. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing to see.
I think it's funny you bring that up. There's a picture after the All-Star game when Kawhi Leonard was going up for a dunk, and he was smiling. And the caption is the face you make when you realize you're not playing for the Spurs because he's on the Western Conference All-Stars. But that's another guy. Wasn't really that well known when he came out of college, but he's top 10 player now.
Yeah,
and very unassuming, very quiet guy. Mm-hmm. But you watch him; he's the top 10 player in the NBA, and him and LaMarcus Aldridge. That's a reason why the Spurs, even after their last core retires.
Yep.
Guess what? They already have another core in place.
Yeah, it's going to be a non-ending cycle.
It's amazing, and then you compare that to the Bulls.
Yeah.
There's no comparison.
No, there isn't. There really isn't. And one last thing I'm going to say about the Bulls is there are some inaccurate comparisons that I've seen. One person tried to call Hoiberg Tim Floyd. I'm like, you realize Floyd had zero talent. Zero. Nothing. There was nothing on that team. He was honestly, he was coaching a bunch of high schoolers, essentially. It was that bad.
He was, because that's back when the rule was that you could come into the NBA straight out of high school.
Right. So, look, I'm not the hugest fan of Hoiberg, but you got to take into account, like you said, he doesn't have as much to work with the inconsistencies with the injuries and all that. But at the same time, I do question the hire. One thing that still gets me is that if I was in his shoes and I had that heart condition, would I really want the stress of coaching the Chicago Bulls?
That's funny. I told that to my mom the other day. She's like, why doesn't he wear a tie? I explained he just had open heart surgery, Mom. Then why is he coaching in the NBA?
Yeah.
Why does he never get mad? Mom, he can't get mad. He'll have a heart attack.
The exact opposite of Thibodeau, where you could hear him yelling from the 300 level.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, but do you think Hoiberg will be back next year?
Yes, without a doubt. And here's why. It hinges 0% on his coaching performance. It's all about the narrative because, like I said before, Gar Pax, as they're affectionately known on Twitter, Gar Pax had their scapegoat. They fired Thibodeau.
They're not going to make fools out of themselves.
No, they're going to bring Hoiberg back because they're not going to want to suck it up. Oh, hey, we made a mistake hiring this Hoiberg guy. No, they're not going to do that.
No, and it's sickening. They will never take account for something like that.
It's all about the hierarchy of business.
Yep.
When you talk about Thibodeau, I'll tell you this. Tom Thibodeau is infinitely better at his job than Gar Forman and John Paxson are at theirs.
Yes.
But because Gar Forman and John Paxson are higher up in the Chicago Bulls organization,
they pull the strings, they do what they want.
No more to say. Yep,
exactly. And, the old saying how, well, if you have an enemy, you got to cut it off from the head. That's what this scenario is.
Yeah.
And I do not see another championship under Jerry Reinsdorf.
I don't see another championship for a very long time.
Yeah,
and
neither
it's hard
do I.
To say, but
neither do I.
That's the truth.
Yep, very unfortunate. So before we sign out here, Eric, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your website, what you're doing? And I really do like to help promote it, seeing as it is run by my own brother. And it's cool to see both family and friends working for it. So if you could tell us a little bit more about what you're specifically doing with the website and how it fits in with the website, what could you tell us?
Mm-hmm. Okay, once again, it's called Today's Fast Break. That's todaysfastbreak.com.
Mm-hmm.
So there's your promotion. Very easy to remember, obviously. And I appreciate it, but it's not my website. I am merely a contributor.
I know. You know what I mean by your website.
I know. So basically, this all started, I want to say last July, maybe last June. I'm not sure. It was sometime in the middle of the summer. But I saw your brother posting some things about the WNBA because a little bit more about myself. I've had Chicago Sky season tickets since 2012.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of the WNBA. I'm a big fan of women's basketball. And I consider myself fairly knowledgeable on the subject. So
yeah, I'd say you are.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But
yes.
As a matter of fact, I probably know more about that than the men's league because the Chicago Bulls have me in a state of total apathy right now.
Oh, yeah. I haven't watched a game in over a month, except for the one against the Lakers. Other than that, I've had no interest in watching them.
Yeah, but women's basketball, I'm very keen on. I'm following it very closely now. And at this point, I forget who approached who. It was so long ago. But either I told Jason, I see you having a WNBA section on your website. Would you mind if I help? I think that's what happened. Or maybe he approached me. But either way, one party approached the other and asked the other for their services. The other person said yes, and here we are today. At today's Fast Break, once again, we cover basketball in just about every possible way.
Mm-hmm.
Both news and analysis.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what will happen is, for example, the Bulls, they lose to the Atlanta Hawks last night. Okay, surprise, surprise. Derrick Rose is hurt. Oh, my God. What are we going to do?
Yeah, quote, news.
So then your brother Jason or one of the other higher-ups usually, he's the editor, but we have multiple editors now because the site is growing. He'll probably post a news segment saying, okay, Derrick Rose hurt, general soreness or whatever they're calling it.
General soreness,
whatever they're calling it now.
Yep.
I can't even keep up anymore.
That's what I've seen on Twitter.
Yeah. And then they've got the meme of Napoleon, of General Napoleon, and they got Derek Rose's head photoshopped on General Soreness.
General Soreness.
So then Jason he'll post the news, and then after the game, we've got a bunch of people. Kelly Scaletta, he's another prominent Bulls blogger. He'll post like a recap or whatever. He'll post his analysis on what's going on with the team, and it just goes on like that. We like to have at least one person for each team, for each NBA team. Some people looking at the college level, and then for my specific section, I cover the WNBA, and that's a section that's still growing. Obviously, the WNBA is a league that is much maligned. It really annoys me because it's a terrific sports league. More people should watch it, and it really hurts when I see people coming at it because these are players that I know personally. At the Sky, they make it so accessible. Their season ticket holders, they get to know the players personally.
Which is a cool thing.
It's amazing. No other pro sports league gives you that opportunity.
No, they don't. They don't.
And
they're too valuable.
Exactly. Bingo. And but again, obviously, no matter what the public opinion is, the WNBA does not have the same level of recognition that the NBA does, and that's kind of why I wanted to start writing about it. Because for the WNBA to be respected as a whole, first it needs to have respectable media coverage.
Yes.
You look on ESPN. Okay, here's something. If you follow me on Twitter, I will never shut up about it. You look at ESPN when there are WNBA games going on. You have stuff like poker, the world's strongest man, SportsCenter reruns, and I think to myself, how are these ladies not deserving of getting a live game broadcast?
Yeah, show them every once in a while.
But people playing poker are?
Yeah,
that's not a sport.
It's a card game.
So anyway, that's once again I could talk about that for hours on end, but you don't want to. That's another radio segment.
Yes.
But anyway, respectable media coverage. I'll say this: if you put the games on TV, things will find a way to work themselves out. Right now, the league's not at a level where all the games are on TV. It's kind of growing, kind of not, kind of flatlining. Okay,
it's that stuff does take some time.
It takes a very long time, and people don't remember the NBA back in the day took that a very long time to take off as well.
Yes, it did.
Most pro sports leagues do, but in any case, while we wait, I just figured I just felt like I needed to do my part, you know?
Yeah.
And as a fan, I wanted to contribute my knowledge, contribute my passion for the league and the sport in general, and I thought it'd be a good opportunity to work with your brother, kind of help the website grow in an area which it was still developing, because at the time I don't believe there are a couple people writing about the WNBA, but it wasn't on a consistent basis like the NBA.
Right.
There weren't there wasn't like a specific, okay, here's a Chicago Sky writer, here's a Minnesota Lynx writer, here's a New York Liberty writer.
Sure.
So I'm right now it's just me and Casey, another writer, and I'll say this: Jason doesn't really monitor us that closely because, as in his own words, he doesn't know what we're talking about.
Right.
So he gives a lot of freedom, and I really appreciate that. It really lets me be creative.
Likes what you're doing. I'll tell you that. I could tell you right now that he's told me he likes what you're doing.
That's very good, because
keep it up.
I will keep it up. I'm glad to hear that. But anyway, basically my goal is to do my part in helping the WNBA and women's basketball become more appreciated as a whole through respectable media coverage. Do I consider myself a member of the media? Absolutely not, because I hate the media. I think it's very gross. It's very, no offense, Alex. I know you're kind of media-ish. But
I like sports media, news, politics media, not so much.
See, I don't really want to delve into that sort of thing, but I wanted to contribute.
Sure.
Because I've liked writing for as long as I can remember. So once again, I figured I'd be able to contribute by sharing my passion for the game and hopefully my knowledge.
Yeah.
And, one thing led to another, and all of a sudden I'm finding myself getting this paid job writing 2 or 3 articles per week about women's basketball. I'm like, this is pretty cool. I could get used to this.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's led to a lot of opportunities. I actually have a couple of interviews with WNBA players coming up, which I'll be posting
great
soon. the thing is, they're not actually, the WNBA is not in season. As you know, it only goes in the summer.
Right.
And during the off season, these ladies, because they're not compensated like NBA players are.
No.
They don't make
millions
$30
upon
million of dollars in 3 months,
yeah.
basically. So what they have to do, they have to go play overseas, Israel, Turkey, China, South Korea, the list goes on. They need to continue making money.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit difficult right now because there's not exactly a lot of action going on concerning the league.
Sure.
But once it gets back into full swing, then I'll be back writing more consistently about it. Right now,
That makes more sense, yeah.
Yeah, right now I'm covering free agency. The free agency period just started, and the draft is in mid-April, and I'll be covering that as well. But
All right.
So let's see. Is there anything else you need to know about the website or what I do?
It sounds pretty good right there. The rest will let people, see for themselves.
See for yourselves. Today'sfastbreak.com. I greatly appreciate any feedback. If you want to follow me on Twitter at Nemchock, or if you just go on Today's Fast Break, you'll find me. I'm there.
Yeah, and I understand Twitter's a very big tool with the website.
It is. It's enormous.
That's
actually.
how I see everything is from Twitter.
Right. Especially, once again, I'll say, the WNBA is still a growing league, and Today's Fast Break, a growing website.
Yeah.
We haven't been around for that long, but I think it's in a very good place. It's in very good hands with your brother and his higher-ups at FanRag, and I think it's being developed the right way. I definitely plan to stay on board because I'm having a great time writing for it. And it makes me feel like I have somebody who appreciates what I do.
Yeah.
And hey, like I said, I'm just a fan. I'm just sharing my passions. I'm just hopefully sharing my knowledge about the sport. And to be paid for that, to be appreciated for doing that, it's pretty cool.
That is awesome.
It's pretty cool.
Well, Eric, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been
so much for
great.
having me.
Yeah, we had a great conversation. We hope to have you back again here before the year is out. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been Sports Talk Live with Alex Pat on WCGR 88.5 FM, The Underground.